Hello and welcome to the last panel of the day 3 of Blockchain Week. This panel is brought to you by CoinSpot, and today our panelists will be speaking on building NFT projects and experiences. We have speaking today Bianca Musico. She's the director from Mintex and co-founder of Aussie Mates. We have Johnson Zhu. He's the research and investing at GBV Capital. Katie Tholo, director, satellite project lead from Run It Wild, and Benji, a founder of Goanna, and Adriana Belotti, the community builder and podcaster. I'll hand the microphone over to you, Adriana.
Thank you, Mary Lee. Welcome, Bianca, Benji, Johnson, and Katie to Building NFT Projects and Experiences. Hello, everyone on the live stream. I'm Adriana Belotti, and today we have panel experiences, including creation, curation, and investment. And we will talk a little bit about each one of these in the next 25 minutes. So we got a lot to cover. All right, let's start with the creatives. Bianca and Benji, with broad strokes, what are the main parts of building an NFT project? Bianca, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think at its very core, the main thing in building an NFT project is really just having a really solid creative foundation. And I think when you have that foundation from there, all the bits and pieces that sort of naturally come will do so. And I think having that foresight into community needs, and I think it's all about building, when you're building your brand creatively, whether you're in the NFT space or not really, it's all about understanding the wants and needs of your consumer right now, but also in the future. And then what are the steps in place that you're going to be able to put in order to be able to achieve that? And I think experience fundamentally from a creative perspective is crucial in achieving goals, but also for, in the NFT world, onboarding normies and getting more people into the space. I think it provides the best on-road or on-ramp rather solution to be able to do that. So in a nutshell, that would probably be my main one, coming down to making sure you've got a really solid creative foundation.
How about you, Benji? What are your insights?
Yeah, no, I definitely echo what Bianca said. I think having a really solid creative and an attractive aesthetic, I guess that's, where people are going to get their first impression. And then kind of once you draw them in, for us, like everything, the real focus is all about kind of community. So kind of how you build out your community and kind of engage with them. And that's kind of, I think, yeah, you kind of, I guess as an NFT project, you're kind of attracting people in terms of through the aesthetic and the creative, but what keeps people kind of engaged over the long term is really that community aspect.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when we look at creativity, it doesn't necessarily need to begin and end with the aesthetic and with the art. And I think that's something that, we've all learned being in an NFT project. Creativity comes from your community building strategies. It comes from the way you craft a smart contract. Creativity lives and breathes in this space in so many different forms. And I think, like you said, Benji, like community is arguably the biggest creative expression in the NFT space. It's where you're going to get your inspiration. It's where you're going to derive value or increase value for the people that are holding your NFT.
We're going to talk a little bit about community again later, I think, but from a founder perspective, what is the experience for you as you work to wow the community? Because wowing the community is very important in an NFT project. And I would assume that there's a lot of burnout involved and you really have to take care of yourselves as you go through the motions.
Benji, did you want to kick off on that one?
Yeah, I think that's a really key point. And I think it's actually something that's probably become almost a little bit more prevalent as we've had a bit of a bear market recently, in terms of kind of, we've seen a lot of token prices kind of dropping, and then I think we've started to see that's probably had a knock-on effect in some ways on kind of communities and the creators' mental health. And I think, it's often said that the pace of kind of blockchain and NFTs is, a lot faster than kind of real world. Everything seems to happen at lightning speed. So there's definitely a risk of kind of burnout and kind of overworking yourself. It can feel like if you take a day off, it's like you've really, in real world, you've missed out on like a week or a month. So you feel like you've constantly got to be engaged and be online and stay up to date with everything that's happening, or you're missing out and you're going to fall behind. So yeah, it's a real risk. I think I'm like everyone, I'm still trying to find that balance myself. So I don't profess to have all the answers here. But I guess, it's one, I suppose you've got to realize you can't do everything yourself. So it's important to build out a good team and a good support network around you. And just trying to maintain that balance, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, if anyone's got any answers on this, I'd love to hear them.
Oh, and I think, Bianca, is that one of the reasons why your project Aussie Mates also focus on well-being and mental health?
Absolutely. Honestly, when we first thought of the concept, obviously we had only been in the space as investors and not as founders. And I think when we got to launch day, the reason behind the project with its focus on mental health just became all the more prevalent. And I think as a founder, there's sort of two sides to the coin in terms of the experience. On one hand, you've got this really deep sense of passion and excitement and this overwhelming, oh my goodness, I'm building something brilliant here, and you're so laser focused on what you're building. And then the flip side of that is the burnout, is the, oh my goodness, I'm juggling this, I'm juggling a family life, I'm juggling a Discord, not just my own, but the 500 other ones that we're all part of these days, and it does, you do feel like if you take a day off, you're either letting your community down or you're letting yourself down. I think, Benji, the biggest piece of advice that I can give is sleep. I think we take for granted sleep in the NFT space, especially in Australia, where time zones, I've never felt a time zone difference as much as I've felt, starting an NFT project down here. But look, I think as well that the second part to that is just managing the expectation. I think there's a lot of positivity in the NFT space. I also think there's a lot of toxic positivity in the NFT space, and this idea around you need to be always on. If you're not here, if you're not grinding for 16 hours a day, then you're not doing it right. I think that's bullshit. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear. Apologies for that. But it is, we need to start setting better expectations, not only for ourselves as founders, but also for the people that we're asking to invest into what we're building. It's not fair to ask people to grind for an allow list spot. It's not fair to ruin their experience in the NFT world by making them stay glued to their computers or glued to Twitter. And that was one of the things that we knew that especially as the project developed, that we needed to start shifting. We needed to bring real world utility, not for the sake of that being the buzzword at the time, but for the sake of the well-being, not only for us as founders, but for our community as well. And it's something that we're definitely applying the learnings for with any other NFT projects that we're working with, and the brands that we're bringing into Web3 as well, because you're not going to get mass adoption if you're trying to convince people to spend 100% of their time online. It's just not feasible.
And also, as we move from Web2 to Web3, where is the space where we can work for ourselves and have more agency over our lives, that should also mean that we should find more balance for our lives as well, right?
Absolutely. We talk about NFTs for financial freedom. We talk about NFTs for just general life freedom. And you don't want to be shackled to something that you love. I don't know about anyone else, but I definitely feel a sense of Stockholm syndrome in the NFT space. I'm sort of too far gone to ever get out of it. It's self-inflicted for sure, but I think for NFTs to truly be adopted, the experience needs to be one that creates a sense of positivity for your life, for your digital experience, but as well as your physical experience as well. And I think that's crucial as an industry moving forward, something that we all need to sort of start working toward.
Katie, Johnson, do curators and investors also suffer from burnout in the space?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's it's universal in a way. I don't think anyone can escape it. It's hard not to be so invested. I think we can all attest to that. it's very much true about going down that rabbit hole. So yeah, no, Bianca, I can absolutely, empathize with you on those sentiments.
Johnson?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm currently in Spain right now. It's like 5:26 a.m. So obviously, like right now, lack of sleep is just basically very often in the space, just because the space is moving way too quickly for you to comprehend. So sometimes you try to do everything, but like you recognize you can't really do everything. So you need to sort of find a balance in between in terms of your personal life and also I guess in the crypto space as well, especially NFT, where it just moves like insanely faster than DeFi in general.
Okay, yes, thanks for waking up so early. All right, let's move on from creation to curation. Katie, you have a background in traditional art. So how was that you curated the first NFT exhibition in Sydney? Or was it in Australia?
Look, we say the first 3D art NFT exhibition, but yeah, it's an interesting transition. I should note, David Port-Beckerfield is a curator of the exhibition of Satellite, so that opened on the 10th of March and closing on the 3rd of April. But yeah, it was a super interesting transition. I spent the last probably 7 years working in an art institution. Mostly as managing commercial relationships, business development, to support exhibitions, public programming, education, conservation of fine art. I think it's one of those industries that has been the same. I think working for a government institution on such a large scale, things can feel quite slow at times. I think for me, it was always sort of waiting for what's next in that space. And I think much like everybody else in the industry, it was around the Beeple Christie sales. So that really sort of pricked up my ears. And to me, sort of coming into the space, and that was such an obvious answer. It was like, I live very much in this traditional, tangible world. Why not be able to live around these incredible digital works that you're investing in because you love it, whether it's the aesthetic or the artist or the community. To me, that just made sense really early on. I think at the time there was an NFT exhibition in Shanghai. There might have been one in St. Petersburg as well. So it probably took me about a month and a half to leave a role I very much loved, to go full-time into creating Satellite, which has been, it's been super rewarding. But yeah, back to the point of sort of lack of sleep, very much have felt that in the last 10 months or so. But yeah, amazing to have it sort of finally come to fruition now.
Apart from the burnout that we are all experiencing, what are some of the other main differences between curating or partnering with artists for a traditional exhibition compared to an NFT exhibition? Yeah,
it's such an interesting question. There's very quickly found out there's obviously no rule book. There's no guide. It was, from everything from install, I feel like I'm a professional on digital display screens now, but also obviously working out the mechanics, the back end, which platform, should we use a platform or a marketplace, I should say, or should we be developing this ourselves? So yeah, I mean, so many different considerations. There's definitely moments of familiarity throughout the whole process that I think there's so many there's so many pros, I should say, to working in digital art, where traditional art world, you would be planning years in advance, depending on the scale of artworks, sculptures, paintings. Digital art moves a lot quicker, no logistic fees. So from that perspective, it was pretty seamless. We have 27 artists from all around the world as well. So even that coordination was incredibly seamless, which is, we're really thankful to all of those artists. That at the end of the day is why we have Satellite on. It's not just about showcasing the technology and the power of NFTs and what they can bring to communities, to creators, to collectors as well. But, it's very much about showcasing artists who previously wouldn't have had an opportunity to showcase their work within a commercial art gallery setting, and NFTs have changed that. It's now possible. So yeah, look, back to your question, a lot of familiarity, but I would say it was really sort of working it out along the way, leading on people, other experts in the space, but yeah, sort of rewriting the book in a way of how to produce a digital art exhibition.
And I love this whole idea of giving new artists, upcoming artists, the opportunity as well to shine along people that have been more traditionally involved with art as well. All right, so I buy NFTs because I either like the piece or the theme of the collection, or because I know the project and the founders and I want to contribute, but I don't think them as an investment or something that I will flip. So Johnson, you are investing in NFTs, and how is it similar to investing in other crypto assets?
So I guess like investing into NFTs is quite similar to like in general, like token stuff is just basically you have a significant upside compared to sort of traditional equity or traditional market in general. So there are a lot of like a speculative element into it. So there's no cash flow behind it, but people just basically say, for example, people just purchase a metaverse land at, I don't know, like 5 ETH or 10 ETH or something. And then they want to hold it, they want to build it on top of it, and maybe resell it later on down the track. So there are a lot of speculative element into it compared to the token one, but also there are the fundamental basis when you're talking about, say, for example, the compared to like traditional sort of investment, where you look at, say, for example, land or / properties. So it's using a similar analogy in terms of, say, for example, really good locations, and really good utility connected suburb, and in terms of traffic, that suburb has the most traffic visits in the past like a month or so. So the land or / property could appreciate in value in the future. So I guess that's the sort of that resemble the sort of traditional investment in a way.
And do you invest in traditional art as well, or are you purely a Web3 investor?
So I'm very native Web3 investor. I joined crypto in 2017, straight out of college. So pretty much just like in the past like 5 years, very crypto native, NFT native investors in yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So Bianca talked a little bit about the mental health and well-being ethos behind Aussie Mates. Benji, you have a green ethos behind Goanna. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, certainly. So when we started the project, obviously we've built on Algorand, and Algorand's a carbon negative blockchain. So kind of inspired by this, and I mean, and to coincide with that, at the same time, NFTs would kind of generally get this kind of bad rap in the press as being extremely bad for the environment. So we wanted to kind of counter that and show that there was a scope that NFTs didn't have to be. I mean, you can mint on Algorand, like I said, it's carbon negative. So we, when we launched, we had a really simple philosophy, and we were going to plant a tree for each NFT that we minted. When we started, I actually went out and purchased all the trees up front. It was kind of my way of like being fully invested, if you like, in the project before we launched. It's like, right, I'm doing this 100%. And as the project gained momentum, we were able to plant more and more trees. By the time we'd kind of released everything towards the end of last year, we planted about 45,000 trees, which was really exciting. And kind of as a spin-off from that, we've now transitioned to run a kind of a crypto-based investment fund. So we're basically through kind of traditional fundraising methods, through selling NFTs, other Algorand NFT projects have also kind of jumped on board as well, and shown their support. We're basically raising this pool of capital. The idea is this will then be invested through various Algorand DeFi protocols to generate yield. And then this yield, kind of every quarter, will take the profits that it's made, and that will be distributed directly to fund tree planting projects. So the idea is not only will we support sustainable initiatives, but the method by which we do it will also be sustainable as well. So we'll be able to do this in an ongoing basis, hopefully indefinitely, and as we kind of grow the capital that we have to work with, we're going to be able to increase our impacts over the long term as well.
That's really interesting how it started one way and the idea grew as the community grew and the needs of the community grew. Bianca, have you seen, apart from what you're doing with Aussie Mates, with collaborations and the projects that you work with in Mintex, have you seen that evolution occur in other projects as well? What is out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more so, not just from an NFT project side, I think from whether it's a traditional Web2 brand or whether it's even a charity and an NGO, I think we're starting to see the use case for NFTs go beyond just your typical NFT project. And I think what Benji's doing with our Goanna, like, I think that's just a testament to that you can use this tool and this piece of technology to actually create social impact and to create social change. So where I sort of see the biggest opportunity is sort of what charities are now starting to do to onboard into Web3 and to leverage NFTs and the metaverse. So, I mean, just to give you one example, we're working with a charity called Livin' with Aussie Mates. They're a mental health charity based up in Brizzy. Really phenomenal work, what they're doing. And what we're actually doing with them is taking their Live and Well program, which they take to corporate and they take to schools, and then actually bringing that into the metaverse. So now we're starting to see these lines between physical, virtual, digital application of something and taking that to the next step. And I think where we sort of start to see that come to life further is, again, keeping down sort of that health path, is one side you've got the charitable aspect to it. You've got these really great causes, planting trees and building these communities that are supporting social causes. But then on the other side of that, you've also got now an additional donation stream coming through for NGOs, for charities. But then further to that, the offering now starts to expand. And when you go down a healthcare path, now we're seeing people access therapy via text, via, telehealth. The next step naturally on from that is going to be accessing healthcare in the metaverse. How does that come to life? What does that experience look like for the end user? I think we're starting to see that at a very grassroots level, particularly, just at a very core level with what we're doing with Livin' by bringing a mental health program into this space. So I think that's sort of one route where we're going to go down. Goodness, I could talk probably for another hour plus on where I see sort of the future of all industry going. You look at e-commerce and that's got its own sort of set of brilliant challenges that people are going to tap into and creating virtual shopping experiences and changing commerce. But yeah, I think that's sort of one. And then on the flip side, if we do sort of go down the e-commerce path, there's a company called Boson that's really innovating in the tech and the loyalty space, which I'm definitely keeping a close eye on and where I sort of see the future of commerce going to. So you've got sort of the two sides there that I'm sort of definitely focusing on.
Yeah, it's good that you brought up the metaverse, because that's my next question to Katie. When we go to a gallery, when we go to a museum, there's this whole spatial experience that we have just by being there physically. And as we evolve into galleries on the metaverse, how are we going to have that feeling? Do you see art in the future being just a metaverse thing, or are we gonna still have a bridge, or either an experience at a gallery that bridges a little bit both, or we're just gonna have them separately? What's your vision?
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think the physical element of galleries will ever be redundant. I think when you think about galleries in the metaverse, it's an exceptional idea. And what's exciting about that is because we're not limited by the realities of the real world. So we don't have to subscribe to gravity or materials. It can be a completely different experience, and it can be elevated because really, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? When we are talking about built environments in the metaverse, which is incredibly exciting. I think when we talk about the real life element, we still need that. I mean, we've spent the last few years separated by COVID. So, now is really a time I see more important than ever for people to come together. And I think when you can be there in person, ideas and shared knowledge flows very differently. And while we're in this space together, while we're in exploring Web3 and the NFT space still very much in the infancy, that shared knowledge is super critical to actually being there, I think, in person. But, you know, not to disregard the virtual. I think, you know, they should live hand in hand, but they should offer very different experiences for whatever they're native to. So yeah, both absolutely have a place.
Thank goodness. Johnson, let's shift a little bit. We've been talking about positive experiences so far. We talked a little bit about burnout, but now I want to touch on something that can ruin everyone's experience, which is scams. So how can we make sure, or what are some of the red flags that someone coming into NFTs right now have to look out for when they are buying their first into their first collection?
Yeah, sure. So I guess like for the NFT space itself, it's actually in the early stage, in super early stage at this stage. So basically, I guess what I've been sort of looking for in terms of scam, in terms of like red flags in the very beginning, is essentially say, first of all, the artwork itself. So by judging the artwork, whether the artwork is original or not, you can tell a lot of different stories. So you can see that on the within the NFT space, we have a lot of, say, for example, algo generated artwork, which is essentially just generated by an algorithm. So a lot of them are basically from an open source sort of portal where you can essentially download the images and upload to NFT and without any sort of legal consequences. So that's one. And secondly, obviously looking at the sort of the team and also the community vibe. So the team will be a bit hard to understand just because a lot of NFT founders or projects within the native Web3 space is actually anon. So the other way to look at it is looking around the sort of community aspect, whether they are in it for the more money or they are just like, oh, we like the art, or we are creating some sort of utility behind it. So say, take an example of it like CryptoPunk and also for 8 Club. So they have really interesting community vibe within the sort of organizations. And looking at the other sort of not so well NFTs, they may be just basically having a really weak utility behind it or non-utility behind it. It's just purely artwork, profile picture clipping. These kind of things are pretty much like a red flag for me on a high level basis. And obviously checking on Twitters in terms of like the number of followers and who's following what, and also who are the common followers as well. That way you can sort of screening out all those like scammers.
Wow, that's a very long list. I think I'm going to write a blog post after this talk, just so we can send everyone into one resource.
One summary, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Okay, we have 1 minute to go, so I'm just going to ask you all one last question. What has been your favorite NFT experience apart from your own projects? I mean, that's for Bianca and Benji. So apart from what you've built, what have been your favorite? And that's for all of you, of course. Let's start with Bianca.
I think for me, there's two. Deadfellas, from a PFP perspective, I just think what Betty and Psycho have been able to build is really fantastic. And then I've got to plug Katie and Satellite. I think from a real world experience, being able to interact with an NFT in a very physical way, Satellite has been really wonderful, and I've loved seeing it. And you know, the NFT gallery that was in the galleries at Christmas time, the big NFT tree at the galleries in Sydney. I'm a sucker for real world, so being able to experience both was really special. So those are my top two.
Amazing. Katie, why don't you go next?
Well, firstly, Bianca, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Look, I think I just love Crypto Chicks. It was my first NFT. It's the first all-female PFP project. And for me, that obviously really took me on my journey to obviously being an investor and a collector. But watching that community grow, getting to know the women in that community, it's been such a wonderful journey. So, I mean, I'm super proud of where that community is, but I will always have such a close place to my heart, just sort of being my first NFT. But I'm really proud to have bought into that community at first, when it felt like a bit of a stab in the dark, you know, when you're so green into the space.
Perfect. Johnson.
Yeah, so I guess my take on this is just basically I'm at the forefront of everything. So moving quickly, following up the latest trends. So these are the sort of like every day is just basically different. So that's why I'm so like way too excited around like NFT, DeFi, just being at the market forefront, learning about very different things coming out from different founders, different very perspectives, makes me sort of like exciting every day on that.
Thank you, Benji.
Sorry. I guess for me, I think, you know, really in terms of the people who've kind of paved the way, and I think like Bored Ape Yacht Club is, I guess, the biggest project, and they've really helped take NFTs kind of more into the mainstream consciousness and kind of bring that kind of real world awareness. And I think that that has been huge. And I think the other thing that's, you know, perhaps really stuck with me over time as well is I remember something I heard Gary Vee say a while ago, and I know he gets a lot of flack because the artwork isn't always considered that highbrow, I guess, to put it nicely, but he always said that like when you're investing in NFT projects, ultimately you're really investing in people, and I think that's something that's just really stuck with me. It's, you know, it's not necessarily just about how good the artwork is or how good, you know, the creative or the community. It's really about like the kind of like the founder's vision and their drive, and I think that's something that's really kind of stuck with me and helped kind of something we've certainly taken on board and tried to inspire us.
Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Bianca, Benji, Johnson, and Katie, for your time this afternoon and your insights. Thanks everyone for watching. I think we are the last panel, so everybody go enjoy your day. Go to the parties. We'll see you IRL sometime soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.